unique, she speak with a super superb speech cause she bold. So refined, remind sublime, it's time to see soul. She create on straight paths so she's forever whole. Organic food that renews her body so she won't grow old. The cold codes of rejection and deception, y'all might just explode. But she's so cold that she was foretold she unfold this warrior gold. Don't you know she got a miracle flow and glow that make her lyrical superb? Like red raspberry herbs on African soil, smooth as coconut oil, she healed with her words. From the Japanese to Senegalese, they bumping the MP3 on the streets by the curve. Precise, so nice with the flow, your soul not disturbed. She be ill with the rhymes on fire, higher, forever, never observed. Vocal movement flows, every pronoun and verb. Vocal movement flows like a radiant bird. Tasleem, Jamila on the quest to be the best, to be heard. You crave to be saved, and I'm just so brave. You crave to be saved, and I'm just so brave. You crave to be saved, and I'm just so brave. I'm mystical like a kufi wearing Sufi, a Buddhist chanting eating sushi, a gangster gorilla some call Sunni, biblically baptized, coded Quranic wise. Man, I own this. Y'all still paying Chase Bank, you gotta loan this. Honing my skills so your brain's strained, trying to comprehend my throne is queen. Expertise expounded, exponentially grown this. Independent artist, but you still can't clone this. Respect claimed and I demanded it. Original oracle, spiritual flow and flatness, man, I branded it. Handed down in the scripts on lips like Oshun, I commended it. You crave to be saved, and I'm just so brave. You crave to be saved, and I'm just so brave. You crave to be saved, and I'm just so brave. The ancestors paved the way. The ancestors paved the way. The ancestors paved. I spot my victims like a Bruce Lee movie scene. Don't scream or stress. My technique will be a painless process. I got express access to what the Mau possess. Yes, in my battle dress with finesse, mind blessed, no contest. Produce the music that complement my lyrical freedom repressed. A MC and poet and MC at best. I hope you hear the codes of my rhymes real clear. Scientifically engineered, and I'm so sincere. I be near to the celestial sphere. Negative energy disappear when I enter without fear. In tune with my God intuition. In submission with my divine mission. Like a naturopath physician, I'm giving you that organic nutrition. Cause you crave to be saved, and I'm just so brave. Like Harriet Tubman, friend, mental, and spiritual slaves. I'm bringing them back home from the cradle to the grave. You crave to be saved, and I'm just so brave. You crave to be saved, and I'm just so brave. You crave to be saved, and I'm just so brave. The ancestors paved the way. The ancestors paved the way. The ancestors paved the way.
All right, Piper Carter podcast. You are listening to Piper Carter. That was Tasleem Jamila, our guest today. Just want to welcome you, Tasleem. How you feeling?
I am feeling great. Thank you for having me, and I'm excited to be here to talk to everybody.
Yeah. So, okay, tell us about that song.
Wow, I haven't heard that in a while. That actually, it's a poem that I wrote. It's a while ago. The album came out a couple of years ago, and the production was by Professor Griff, legendary Professor Griff, Public Enemy. He did the production on that, and I that was kind of like my. I'm a poet, but that was kind of my, I guess, my homage to hip hop because as a poet, I was influenced first not by your traditional poets, but from hip hop. So,
Okay, that was a great song. It was. I love the lyrics.
mhm.
I think the lyrics were super strong, and what I really love about the lyrics is like you have a book. I'm gonna get the title incorrect, so and I have the book and I've read the book, but I don't know why I'm struggling with the title. But it's like a black Muslim mystic.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's my first book. It's called Black Baptist Muslim Mystic.
Yes.
Title from the Cosmos. So yeah, that
Yeah.
actually the lyrics are in there also. So the poem is in there. But yeah.
Yeah. And so that book, I have that book, and that book I totally relate to because you're from Chicago, I'm from Detroit. you
Mhm.
spent a lot of time in Detroit and Michigan and, going back and forth, but um your what would I call it? Like culturally, I feel connected to you because I feel like we share like the similar culture in that way. And I feel like that book really spoke to me personally because I feel like you were describing me and like my culture. So I appreciate that you making that book because as a person who has as a person who identifies as black in the so-called Americas,
Mhm.
but then that has multiple identities within blackness
Yes.
and invisibilized identities within blackness
Yeah.
and growing up like where you're kind of put in a position where people want you to force to choose
Mhm.
an identity, but like you fit into these different identities, and it's like you don't want to split yourself up, and then people are trying to ask you these questions, and it's like you're trying to explain that like you're not this one thing, like you're all these things. And I feel like that book, when you wrote that book, I was like, oh yeah, that's exactly who I am. So thank you for that book. Can you talk about that too?
Yeah, you're right. When I came up with the title, so okay, to go back to like how I started on the journey of even thinking about writing a book. Being from Chicago, I grew up around the South Side poets. So very specific to the South Side, meaning we were more influenced by, I think like more influenced by hip hop. And so coming up on the Chicago poetry scene, it was just amazing. And it was, to me, just great training as a poet and as a performer. So I was already had training in acting and film before I became, a spoken word artist or poet, a performance poet. And so I hadn't even really thought far enough to write a book. I had a DVD back in the day when DVDs, that was my first product that was out with my poetry. And then after that, CD. And so fast forward when I moved to Detroit, I was living in Detroit and I was kind of on my journey trying to find my way. And I had been so immersed into the Chicago artist scene from every aspect of it, from hip hop, jazz, and I was studying with the legendary Kalan Phil Karan, Baba Kalan Phil Karan. May God be pleased with him. Um, who's no longer on this physical realm in the physical body, but he was my teacher, and I was studying heavily with him when I moved to Detroit at that time, and it was an experience that still continues to give to me today. And he taught music in the cosmos, and just taught me to trust myself. I have a poem in that book that's dedicated to him, and he will always say, anytime I would say something and put a time limit on it, he was like, "We don't have a time. You're African. You don't have a time. We're from we eternity." And so that when I moved there, going from studying with him 3-4 days out of the week, I would study guitar with him, voice with him, and he played multiple instruments. And if anyone does not know who he is, you can look him up, Kalan Phil Karan. He played with Sumra, and he was the one who is the vocal coach to Shaka Khan and Maurice of Earth, Wind, and Fire, and so many others. His sons are still playing now, Hypnotic Brass Ensemble. So that's just a little taste of who Phil Karan is. But I remember I called him on the phone and I'm like, wow, we were just getting, started. We were about to, I was in a group with him and some other artists, and he had named our group, and we were like, yeah, we're going to travel around, and we were training. So then I moved to Detroit. And so I was a little like, wow, what am I gonna do now? And I called him on the phone, and he was like, wait a minute. I'm at the time he was in his, I think, mid late 80s. He said, I'm 80 something years of age. Do you think every cycle is going to be the same for you when you're on this planet? He was like, of course not. He was like, you're a poet. What do poets do? And he was like, you write poetry. He said, write some poetry. So that's how the book came about, you know.
Yeah. So can you talk to us too, like about talk to us a little bit about um like that process of going back and forth between like, Michigan and Illinois.
Okay, wow. It's a lot. I have cousins in Detroit. So Detroit is not new to me. It was not new to me. Came back and forth from Chicago to Detroit. We always call each other, Chicago and Detroit are cousins, right? So back and forth all the time when I was younger. Of course, I was a child. So I was 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So I saw things from that perspective. And just to get back to tie into the title of the book, Black Baptist Muslim Mystic, the reason why I named it that, it was really a compilation of a lot of the poems up to that date. And I said, okay, how can I publish the poems, and what am I going to name the book? What really describes all of these poems and who I am? And so I said, okay, well, I'm a black person. And it wasn't just black in the literal, as a, black person in America, but just the definition of black being from black matter, being from nothingness, which all things are created in the cosmos, coming from that infinite portal of creative flow that is ongoing, and where I go in retreats every day to become again and again. And Baptist, I grew up in the church. And I look at all of those aspects as a beautiful part of my journey. I don't think any of it takes away from who I am, and I am always becoming. And so, just those beautiful memories of me growing up in the church, singing in the choir, and my father like a head deacon, and just having those great memories. And then Muslim, I talked about just my journey to becoming a Muslim, even being around my friends who were like 5%ers, people in the Nation of Islam, and Sunni Muslim, Sufism, all of that's in the book. And I thought it was very important because just on my journey, especially in Chicago, a lot like Detroit, we had so many different aspects of growth and becoming and knowledge of self that I was around from, you know, taking the martial arts, being around people who were studying the Hebrew Israelites, like studying, going to Soul Veg, which was my first restaurant when I had became, back in the day, was called vegetarian, not necessarily vegan, but, and just all of that came together. I said, it makes me who I am today. So I didn't want to ignore any of it. I want to embrace all of it, because if I didn't go through all of those stages, be taking the meta netter, classes and all of that, I wouldn't be who I am today. So back and forth was just a beautiful journey that made me appreciate, even to this day, each city. It has such rich history. I look at Chicago when I'm there. Chicago, I always say, that brings out the spiritual gangster in me, where it's a city that loves its culture. Each culture is so rich, and each person, no matter where they're from around the world, has their place there. And just as a black person, I always felt just the love from my people and my culture, who I am. So getting that love and growing up with that allowed me to be confident no matter where I go in the world, no matter who I'm around. I'm confident just being me. I don't have to change myself up. I'm confident being me. And I see that mirrored also in Detroit and the people of Detroit. And so to me, Detroit is just filled with brilliance and innovation, and those who can take something that looks like nothing and almost, how you talk about in the Holy Quran saying kun fayakun, be and it is, and it appears to be something magnificent. And that's just shows the greatness of us as a people and the greatness of us as cosmic beings.
That's beautiful. Also too, can you talk about there's so many questions. Okay. You are a mother. So
Yeah.
talk about being a professional artist and being a mother and balancing that, because you've been, I want to say, a mother of like two generations, right?
Yes.
You've been like
I'll say
a
that.
young mother, and then I would say like a mature mother, right? And
Yes.
so can you talk about like when you were a young mother and being, a mother and an artist, and what that was like, and then being, a mature mother, and in the mothering process, and then now being a mother to a young lady, right? As well as a girl. You know what I mean? Because there's like different ways of, of being a mother and an artist, and you've kind of lived through, those different identities. So can you speak about that?
Yes, I absolutely love this question because I've talked about it to like friends, but I'm glad you asked this question because it is so, it's different, and it is relevant to how I choose to show up as an artist, because my children, first of all, are just everything, to me as far as a mother. So they were sent here, they're their own people, but I have to take care of them, they're in my care, and so being a mom when I was a young artist, a younger artist with my daughter, wow, I feel like in a way, I know how some mothers say, I feel like we grew up together in a way. So I was always an artist. So that's really all she knows. Even when she was young and I was married to her father, we were both um, forms of kind of artists. We met at art school, Columbia College. And so just being a young mother as an artist, and then I became a single mom when we divorced. And so she had to go everywhere with me, as far as like the studios, photo shoots. I was a lot of times I was a journalist for at a radio station in Chicago, so I interviewed people from all over the world. She would sit there and learn how to. The engineer would show her how to work the boards. Yeah, this is old school, you guys. Before a podcast, we could set it up in the house. But I was even on location. I would be hosting at the African Festival. I would perform there and interview people, and I used to coordinate actually shows as a manager for backstage. So she kind of saw a lot. She was a part of my first professional photo shoot, and she was on my album. And also, I had a village there in Chicago. So that was a difference too in my hometown, that I would go on the weekend tour with a lot of artists. We would say, okay, we're going to roll out to Milwaukee, or we're gonna go just a couple days here. I always had my village. I had my parents. I had young parents. See, my parents are older now, so they were young parents who were able to pick her up from school. I had my sisters there, especially my twin sister, because our daughters are 8 days apart, so they grew up like sisters. So I had my village. If I had to go, do a show, I didn't have to think about it. And so it was just that, being that artist also, and being a young artist where that's all I did. I'm like, I'm an artist. That's all I want to do. I want to be an artist, whether it's fashion design or whether it's doing my poetry performance. I did it full time teaching. I taught theater and poetry and fashion in the schools. So everything was surrounded with just being an artist. And all my friends were artists. And I was, promoter of art and art events. So fast forward now, being a mother, and like you said, it's two different generations because my daughter, my oldest is 26. She just turned 26 a few days ago, and then my youngest, who is now 12. They, for one, are very different. Their personalities are very different, and I'm at a different stage in my life, and I live in a different city. I'm not in Chicago, and so I always say my younger daughter, she experiences my parents as elderly, very elderly grandparents. So I if I go out of town, I can't leave her necessarily with them because they're older. They really can't take care of her in that way. And so I've learned to adjust even now as a seasoned artist and a seasoned person. I've over the years became a certified yoga instructor, certified Reiki healer, certified holistic practitioner, and also academic. I'm academic researcher and scholar. So now, when I'm out at events or when someone books me for events, it has to be in divine alignment with where I am now, because it's not worth either taking her out of school or having her come with me if it's not gonna align financially, if it's not gonna align with my schedule, if it's not gonna align even just where I am energetically, then I'm okay with saying pass, because I know what is for me will not pass me by, and what passes me by was not for me. And so she is also able to see that, and she's an artist as well. She's a visual artist. So with her having an entrepreneur father and a mother, she sells her artwork. She's a co-author of a book, and she sells her artwork. So a lot of times it may be a youth, like we just did a youth day where she sold her art. I was there to help support her. I didn't have any of my things, and she's there to support me. So I show her the backgrounds of how to be an artist, the business side of it, of having my own publishing company, My Soul Speaks Publishing. I'm a voting member of the Grammys Academy, and so just telling her all these ins and outs. I'm showing her the portals of like, here, this is what I voted for. This is how you get into this. So she actually styles me. She's like, Mom, that's not giving. So and she'll tell me, you need to be on TikTok or you need to do this. So just having those different generations, and still even my oldest daughter, I'm always gonna be a mother. We're friends, but I'm still her mother. She actually, I was hire her to be an assistant, also to post on one of my pages and send out my newsletters. So it's about learning to go with the ebbs and the flow of life, and learning to embrace change, learning to know when to pull different things from your God given gifts and when to use them, and know your value so you can still be a mother and put your children first and include them along the journey as well.
And is that your daughter in the chat?
I don't know. No, I don't. I can't see the chat. I don't think so.
Okay. It says 1920.com says facts. I'm also making room for what I really want. So maybe that's not your daughter. Maybe it's just
Somebody
someone
else.
in the
Yeah.
chat. Yeah. Okay. That's what's up. Okay. So it says this is Dom.
Oh.
Okay. That's what's up.
Okay.
Yeah. So, okay. Thank you for that. I always like to ask different folks about their parenting and being a parent and an artist because, I grew up and both my parents are artists and it's a thing. So, now with that, you talked about, basically going back and forth between, Michigan and Illinois, and
Mhm.
then also, being in academia, being a healer, um, and, being a mother and being an artist can serve as a role as being a healer. Can you talk about delve more into that process for you in becoming, you said you've become a certified yoga instructor, certified Reiki, and then, gaining all of these certifications in healing. Can you talk about being an artist and a healer?
Oh yes, to me, art is the ultimate medium to heal. And if you're a visual artist, if you play an instrument or your voice, the first instrument, if you are a film maker, if you like you a photographer, it you have to be intentional about why you're doing what you do. And so my intention was always to add to the higher frequency of the planet. I remember when I was around, I says 18, 19 years old. I remember I used to go to the mosque in Chicago called Mosque Miriam. And I remember seeing the women, Sister Ava Muhammad, may God be pleased with her. I was inspired by her just as a dynamic speaker. She was a lawyer. And I thought at that time that there weren't not enough women representing in Islam or just in on a spiritual aspect of just spirituality, women that I was around, came up around, even African spirituality. I said, I don't see enough women. I see a lot of men. And so I really prayed about it. And I said, well, instead of being a minister, what I'm an artist. And I said, people listen to artists even more so than preachers or imams or ministers. And so I said, I'm going to pour all of that into my art. So it was always intentional, not in a way where it was just preachy, but just in a way of sharing my healing journey and my spiritual journey, just my life with others in a poetic way. And so it's really about intention. And now over the last, I would say maybe 10 years, I've incorporated my sound healing bowls and poetic meditation healing sessions with in groups when I perform at some venues or especially private events, more intimate events. And I've incorporated that into my work. And I'm very intentional about my words. And so to me, one thing I learned not only just from studying myself, but again, my teacher, Baba Kalam Phil Karan, he taught me, he used to teach us these different vocal exercises. And these are the same vocal exercises that he taught Shaka Khan and all the, Maurice from Earth, Wind, and Fire and other singers who have incredible voices. And he even taught people, he would tell us like they couldn't really sing, but he told us that we imitate the people around us. We take on the voice of our environment, whether it's people that we grew up around or things that we hear from the media. And we're yet to tap into that secret that within us is our own original essence, our own voice. So we would do these voice exercises. He said, I'm going to give you these voice exercises, and you can one day you're going to teach them to other people and you're going to make it your own because you're tapping into your essence of who you are, your voice. You're tapping, he would just say, kind of cracking the voice. And so, not necessary to sing, but he said your speaking voice. He said it's going to be so powerful because this is the cosmic voice that you came into existence to emanate and to speak with. He said, especially as a poet and just as a speaker, even when you talk, he said your voice will heal or it will harm. So be careful what you say when you start to tap into that and do the exercises. And so the more I did it, I did find that so that I sometimes, even with my children, I was like, okay, I can't really raise my voice because tapping into your original essence, your cosmic essence of who you are. In Islam, we call it fitra, your essence. It was kind of, people would kind of shake when I would say something. So I've learned to kind of, tone it down and use that power of my voice to speak as a poet. And God willing, it will be a healing for those who hear it.
And can you talk about you mentioned before, like, how you've been doing this a while, and so you've been, doing journalism, you've been doing your artistry,
Mm-hmm.
and you were, uh, purchasing equipment and learning how to manage and learning how, the behind the scenes and connecting with different people that are in the industry. And can you talk about that journey of just um, all the different, tools and skills that you've been able to learn so to put into your toolbox as a professional?
Yes, a lot. I've studied with some amazing people. I've also studied with a friend who I did a poem dedicated to Malcolm X, and a producer friend who produced it is Kerwin Young. He's one of Public Enemy's original like Bomb Squad producers. So very good friend that taught me how to basically trust in my ability to know music. He's like, you're a musician. I grew up taking piano lessons, and he's like, you can read music. You know what sounds good. I remember it was during the 2020 when everything was shut down, and I said, okay, I had a fellowship. I got some money, and I said, I'm going to use this money to finally build my studio. Like I had a few mics here and there, and I said, I'm going to build my studio. And so I asked him, I said, okay, I want you to send me some music so I want to make some more music. And he's like, you know how to do music. Haven't you been producing for a while? Because he had told me before, he sent me videos on which applications to download, which software. And he's like, you know what sounds good. I want you to produce. So he literally walked me through, we were on the phone, he walked me through everything to buy to set up a studio. He said, now you got everything. He said, you can do a whole album right here at home. So I really would sit and listen to back and forth YouTube videos, tutorials, how to set up everything. I have everything. And so it taught me to be self-sufficient. Even though I use producers now, I still have music yet to come out that I've produced, and just playing around with it, experimenting with it, and not being afraid to trust in what you want to hear. And I find that it's usually sounds that other producers did not necessarily have for me unless I would sit and tell them exactly what I wanted. And so I'm grateful for that. And also, I work with Kahari Lemuel, who's a dear friend of mine. He played cello at my first book release of my new book that just released in June. And he is a master musician, and he's also a producer and an extraordinary singer. And so I studied with him as well. I remember my first album, I produced a lot of music, or recorded a lot of music at his studio. And so he taught me, again, just everybody I'm around I'm grateful. Everybody I'm around, really, we're just mirrors of each other. So everybody's just definitely on that energy of knowing that they're spiritual beings. And so he would just say your poetry. Close my eyes, say my poetry, dim the lights, and just start playing the music and composing it that way, and start singing and affirmations everywhere. And it's just really beautiful. And now he's married. His wife took it to the next level with cosmos all on the ceilings, which Baba Phil Koran taught me how to read the cosmos and the constellations and to play the flute, and just to trust innately what's inside of me. And so to this day, I hope to release some music with my full production. And even when I'm in the studios with other people, I know what I want to hear. So I can let them know, like, okay, turn these levels down, or turn this up, or no, I know how my poetry voice sounds. Don't have too much of this on. Don't put reverb on this. So to me, it's empowering especially as a woman, it's empowering because I had some situations that weren't always so positive, where I guess men had other alternative motives of like, hey, I want to work with you. And they really didn't want to work with me. They were basically just realized like, okay, I'm not trying to get with you. So all of a sudden now they didn't have any music. So to me, it's very important, especially as women, that we advocate for ourselves and we learn to do things on our own. So not only produce for ourselves, but we can do it for others.
Yeah. So that that's like a huge thing. That's one of the biggest reasons that I really honestly created, we found hip hop and a lot of my companies because um I have a lot of ideas and I really want to do them. And well, maybe not so much anymore, but at the time things were very expensive or very prohibitive because it was expensive to learn or expensive to like, purchase things. And so there was like this learning curve that had to happen. Um and so thanks for like naming how you know, decided to face that and work through that and push through that and persevere and create, for yourself.
Hmm.
So talk uh well, help us demystify your process around creating. And because a lot of people, let me say this,
Hmm.
in creating, we found hip hop, what I in my experience and my conversations that I have had with a lot of women, um, I've been told that it's very intimidating to just do it. And not just women. I mean,
Hmm.
lots of people have told me that they're intimidated by just trying to um live as a creative person or make a living as a creative person.
Hmm.
And especially as one gets older, because people start thinking about things like, retirement or
Hmm.
401k or like taking care of their kids or buying a house, sending people to school,
Hmm.
um, having health insurance, dental insurance, buying a car, like owning a home, like all the things.
Yes.
And so, it's been described to me how people have said that they have felt stifled or crippled by the fear
Yeah.
of not want, like, just I'm gonna go get a job, whether, some job that I don't care about, that doesn't
Hmm.
feed my soul, because I need to, make this living. And then we go through COVID. And
Hmm.
then during COVID or during the pandemic, um, people, were saying that on their social medias and things, that they had epiphanies and they realized that they had spent their life doing some job that didn't have any meaning. And so we saw a lot of people investing in equipment and just, starting podcasts and starting, creating their passion projects and turning that into, you know, a living. And so now lots of people have this, and then people were looking like, oh, I've been neglecting my health, and so a lot of people are turning to healing. And so here you are,
Hmm.
as a person that has been on this trajectory the entire time. This has been your life and your practice this entire time. So, um, talk about like being on, I'm gonna say like this side of the pandemic, whatever that is right now,
Right.
and being a person who has been doing this, right? Like this whole
Yeah.
time. And so can you talk about what that's like for you, right now?
Yeah. Wow. Great question. And let me tell you something, artists out here, it's an ongoing process. You always have to reclaim, renew, rebrand, renew your intentions, grow, expand, think outside of how you normally would think, create outside, collab with like people. It takes a village. It takes a village. Like I talked about before, I had my family. And now I have my beautiful husband who's from Detroit, Khaled El Hakim of the Black History 101 Mobile Museum. He is a big supporter of me, who encourages me. I remember when we first met, he's managed artists forever. And, I'm stubborn. So at times he would give me advice and I'm like, I'm not trying to hear that. But then it goes back around even years later. I'm like, wow, you did tell me that a long time ago. So as artists, be open to advice from especially people who know, not just anybody. But you're always going to I have to pump myself up, but also I surround myself with other artists. Artists only understand really what artists are going through, but you need other people too. So you need the business people. But when it comes to like to keep going as an artist, I call my artist friends. I'm like, okay, let's have a jam session. Even over the phone. Okay, we're gonna. Oh man, I saw what you just put out, some music. We just talk about that because every artist has experienced like just the feeling of like, oh, I want to do this, but it's so hard. I don't know if I could do this anymore. All the time. So I call on my artist friends. I have many artist friends, and we hold each other up with positive words. We remind each other like, look, you are dope. Look, do this, do that. We collaborate together. We also give each other advice, and I give each other like connections, not wanting anything out of it. Not saying, well, you have to give me a piece of this. No, out of the love of we've been artists and we've been called to this divine assignment of being an artist, and especially art that is striving to elevate humanity and elevate the frequency of the planet. And so we hold each other up, and we're not afraid to I'm not afraid to be vulnerable with them, to say, man, I feel like, like you said, I'm not relevant, I'm getting this. But then also what inspires me is listening to new artists, new up and coming artists, younger artists, and then going back to some of that classic good music, and looking at documentaries, reading books. Like, how do they do that? How do they keep going? What are some things that they did well, and what are some things they didn't do well that I can learn from? And learning from my journey as well is never a loss. It's always a blessing or a lesson. And so I think with also knowing your value, it's many ways to be an artist, because if you're an artist, you're an entrepreneur, and also having that business side. So don't be afraid to take business courses. That's something I had to do, to get a coach, take business courses, also to get a therapist. I have a therapist, as well. And to learn that you are a business. So if you are a photographer, you can teach photography. You can teach it, personal lessons. You can teach online courses. Know your value, and don't underestimate your skill level. And if you're always growing and expanding, to charge what you are worth and ask for what you are worth. And if you have to go to a different audience of people that will pay you your worth, then you may have to do that. But always exploring the other avenues. So if you know something, you can always teach it. You can always turn it to a class. You can always turn it to a book. You can always speak on it, and people will pay you for it. And also, something I always have to continue to do is recreating myself as an artist, but also gathering a team of people. And also, as a Muslim, I pray 5 times a day. I'm always in the prayer and the meditation, when sometimes I have to just go deep and disappear for a while, not from just, life, because I still have a child, I still have to live, but just not always have to post 24/7 on social media. Sometimes you have to go away. You have to go away and slow down to speed up, to elevate up. And I do that often. And sometimes over the years, I've traveled to to Africa. I've traveled, to visit my spiritual teacher who lives in Senegal, Sheikh Mahi Sise, just to recharge and to get away from all the stress of America. But most importantly, if you can't physically go anywhere like that, you can always spiritually. I travel every day, sitting in my room, sitting on my couch. I travel spiritually, and that's where the imagination opens up. I tune off and turn off everybody else, because sometimes you can compare yourself to the point where you don't even want to do anything, and you don't believe in what you are put here to do. I turn all that off, and I tune into the Most High and the divine, with tune in what's within me, which is everything, and say, what am I put here to do? What shall I do right now? And it comes to me clear, just like in my childlike nature. That's what I love about having those 2 generations. My 12-year-old always using that imagination to create art. I asked her today, she drew something on her iPad. I said, where'd that come from, the person that she drew? Oh, I just thought of it. How many of us sit and just go again into that dark matter of infinite possibilities and say, what am I supposed to be doing? Not what everybody else is doing out there. And just quiet yourself. Don't think about the past or the future. Live in the now and await to appear within yourself what you're supposed to do, and let that be your driving force. But I would say do all the things that you need to do: getting therapy, stay in prayer, be around people that'll lift you up, collaborate, renew, reclaim, believe in yourself, and keep going. I always say I want to be an artist and a poet like a Sonia Sanchez, like the last poets that keep going, like those who are still traveling the world. So God willing, art lives on forever. I'll be one of those who continues to expand, to grow, and to share.
Wow, that's great advice. um, Talk a little bit more about, you know, because you talked about the different avenues in which um, different artists can, stay relevant or, make a living. And talk a little bit more because what you've done, you actually have, is it three companies?
Yes.
It's three, right?
Yes.
Take us through like each one.
Well, My Soul Speaks, that's the first one that I created, established in 2005. And it's grown and expanded. So it's just My Soul Speaks LLC, which was just myself, like, and you make your name in actually an LLC. So I also have Tasleem Jamila, but it was under that entity, My Soul Speaks, that where my DVD came out. So I publish my own work. So it's My Soul Speaks LLC, My Soul Speaks Publishing. So even with as an artist, I'm with BMI. So everything is under My Soul Speaks Publishing. With that, my DVD, all my music, even when I've been on a lot of collaboration projects, music, it all comes out. My books all come out under My Soul Speaks LLC. This is my latest book. And also events. I've produced and created physical events. So I am a queen. That's something I've been doing for the last, I say when my oldest daughter was 18, so about 7 years, 8 years. It's an event where it's all women. It's about healing. So I'll have opening, young poets, people of different generations talking about healing and who we are as in our divine feminine. And that's something I've carried on. Two I did two this year. So just partner with different organizations. So you learn to partner with others who have the money, who pay you to do it. When you're an expert at something, don't be afraid to let people know I'm an expert at this, the people with the money. And so people will pay you for your expertise. So that's one company. And then I have Firdos Consulting, which is consulting people how to do exactly what I just said, consulting people as how to do that as an artist, and also consulting whatever skills I have. Right now, like I said, I went back to school. I'm an academic, in a PhD program, have a master's degree, how to get money for school, how to navigate that at any stage and age in your life and still be an artist. Consult people on their holistic health, how to reclaim your health at every stage of your life, how workout plans, food plans. So you can always be a consultant as an artist. And then the next one is Art as Sacred, which is an initiative. It's right now going through the phase of becoming a non-for-profit, where I have a few writers now that are going to contribute to the blog. So this is going to be a legacy that is not just going to be about me. I have a podcast with it where I've interviewed artists from around the world, and it will include scholarships and fellowships and retreats to cultivate and nurture not me, but other artists who are coming along and who use art as a sacred practice in order to illuminate the world. So, as an artist, you're an entrepreneur. You just have to sit again that quiet time and tap into what can I do, and make start with one thing and make it a business. But if you're an artist, you can have products. You can sell merchandise. You can sell T-shirts and hats, and you can do workshops. You can teach. It's so many things that can come out of just you're not just an artist. You're an enterprise. You have to look at yourself as an enterprise and as a business, and think of yourself as an entrepreneur and market yourself as that.
Yeah, so let's talk about marketing. So when it comes to marketing, right? So uh before, people would have like a label or a publishing company, let's say a big, conglomerate or a big corporation. And so one of the benefits of being a part of a big corporation is that they handle, right, like all of your marketing. They get you your distribution, they get you seen in places where supposedly you may they get you seen by more eyes than you could alone.
Yes.
And so nowadays, or at least the last 20 years, people have been moving away from being a part of these big corporations, and people are able to hone and develop their, as we call it, 1,000, true fans. Can you talk to us, because you've had your foot in a few different spaces? You talked about um, having, distribution, uh, access, and then you also talked about being independent. And then, what is that like as an independent artist, an independent entrepreneur, an independent business person? Um, because if you were with a label, right, they would have a marketing department, they would have a PR department, they would have a promotion department, and the marketing department would come up with the strategy, and they would decide, like, what your brand image would be. And then um the promotion department would get it into the different distribution spaces, right? And then your PR department would make sure that it was seen everywhere in all of the blogs and the magazines and on TV and this kind of thing. So talk about that, because it seems as though that those aspects of being independent seem to be where many artists are challenged, because there's I'm going to call it a lot of noise,
Hmm.
right? And so people have lots of choices. And so how do you um number one, how were you able to afford all those things? Like, do you actually do all those things, or do you hire out, or do you collaborate? And then, yeah, like, how are you getting into the spaces that you want to get to? And that would include booking the shows, whether it's opening for bigger artists, or headlining your own show, being in these festivals, and then also to, getting landing these interviews and magazines and podcasts and blogs, and then having your product, if you will, being available widely. So I know that's like a long
No,
question, but
you're
I
asking some
want to ask you that.
great questions. Okay, so that's a weighty question. It really depends on the individual and what stage they're in their life, and what stage they're in their career. So, like me, I'm still interviewing actually for a manager. So most of the time, I've not had an official manager. I've had different people play different roles in my life. I've had at one point I had a friend who booked me so many shows because that's just what he did naturally. It wasn't just like he didn't ask for any money. It was just like, hey, I believe in you as an artist. He would book me shows left and right. I've gotten fellowships with different organizations. I'm on an artist roster out of a organization out of Chicago called Iman, where some people may see that um, roster, and I'm tapping to sometimes some things that may come out of that. But I am not close to, even with my book, I always say, okay, next time I'm not close to opening myself up to a bigger publishing house. But within that, I always tell people, don't allow that to stop you from getting your work out there. Like, you can still get your work out there, and if you want to go with, you can go. They have smaller publishing house, like medium-sized publishing houses, and they have bigger ones. You're right, to get you more of the media, more of the marketing. I would say start with where you are. If you can do your book yourself and work a job, if you can get something that is in alignment with what you're doing, like as an artist. Like, I know when I was in Chicago for years, I say most of my life, if I was working, it was always, I was always teaching art. I was always a teaching artist. A lot of opportunities to teach art, and I had a lot of shows, a lot of things. So I was really grateful for that, for opportunities there, in order to fund it. And I actually had people to. I remember my first album, it was someone who just believed in my art and say, here's some money. So I got it. I got my album professionally at the time mastered, by one of the top Chicago studios. And then with shows, people will fly me places. So I would say work on your craft where you're really undeniably great at what you do, where people will want to pay you to come places, and you could actually put that into your art. But still, you may want to stay open to getting with a record label, but don't make that your only goal where you don't even put work out. You can still put work out. People were doing things on their phones. People were literally doing things on their. I know people that did things on their phones, like, and have hundreds of thousands of followers, around. A couple of my friends from Chicago, actually. One is a jazz musician, other is poet. So you can use what you have until you have something else to elevate you to the next level. So if you have someone that that is a publicist or that has connections, and maybe you can work out a deal with them. Say, hey, if something comes out of, you don't have the money, and if you do have the money, you could pay somebody to do it. Or if you have time, which is the most precious of them all, then hey, you're gonna have to send out those emails and contact the people yourself, whether it's on Instagram or Twitter, or get the emails, and you're gonna have to do that groundwork yourself. So it really depends on how much time you have, where you are in your career, and what are your intentions and your goals. But most importantly, don't let anyone stop you from putting your art out there on whatever level. Just strive to do the best that you can with what you have until you have more, and learn from other artists that are around you. They have a lot of different workshops. So if you're a recording artist, you may be a part of, like I said, I'm a part of BMI. You have ASCAP, or the different ones. Sometimes they have like free classes online where they teach you those things. Everything is YouTube University, where you can learn everything. They have all these AI apps that can even do marketing. I'm learning some things, how to do promotion myself with those. Using Canva to put some things together, 5rr.com to hire people for $5, $10 to do certain things. So you just have to want it. It's out there.
Yeah. I wanna so first I wanna just shout out people that have been listening. So I wanna shout out to 1920.com. That's Dom. And then also want to shout out Sherry, peace Sherry. Um Want to shout out Sister Hidayah. Also want to shout out Sister Sophia. So Sister Sophia says Assalamu alaikum. So want to shout everybody out. Yeah, so this has been super interesting. Now, you have your Bandcamp, and we put your Bandcamp inside
Mm-hmm.
of the description box. You have your website, you have your social media. Let's talk about um distribution, right? With my company, We Found Hip Hop. I just started the what would we call it? Like, it's a label, right? So we just started a record label, and it's to put out recorded music. So we have Aisha Ellis. Shouts out to Aisha Ellis, drummer.
Congratulations. That's exciting.
It's exciting.
It
And
is.
so we decided we decided to put it out only on vinyl, right? And
Yes.
so when you purchase the um album, you're going to get either the vinyl, like a physical
Mhm.
copy of the vinyl, which is all instrumental, 6 songs, or you're going to get from the website our digital download, right?
Yes.
And so we're not doing streaming. Now,
Yes.
I've gotten some flack from a person. I'm not going to name that person right now cuz I don't know if they want me to name them or not, but the only reason I'm not naming them cuz I don't know if they would be offended if I name them. So, this person is a person that's in the industry. They've been in the industry forever. They're an industry person.
Mm-hmm.
And they disagree with me. They're like, yo, y'all need to be on all the streaming services. But we're like, the reason we're not on the streaming services is because we want to make sure that she gets her
Her money.
money.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, but you're missing out on discoverability. And so we're like, well, but what we're working to do is build our 1,000 true fans. And
Mm-hmm.
so our 1,000 true fans
Mm-hmm.
will be people who will
Mm-hmm.
visit our website, will attend the
Mm-hmm.
shows, will purchase merch.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're experimenting, if you will, with
Mm-hmm.
organizing discoverability on the streaming platforms. But to be honest, he is the only person who's complaining about that, but it's because he also really loves her as
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
and he's like, "Yo, there's another person that's in her genre that's
Mm-hmm.
like 20 years her junior, and this person is doing it this way. This person is on Instagram killing the game. They're on
Mm-hmm.
TikTok killing the game. And killing the game as a definition by his standards would be, I don't know,
Popularity.
100,000 uh,
Mm-hmm.
impressions, likes, or
Mm-hmm.
something like that on these platforms, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're getting brand deals. They're doing this, they're doing that. And this is what y'all need to do. You need to follow what this person's doing. And so we've been just doing things a little differently.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just sharing that with you because I want to understand, what are you doing? How are you doing it? Like again, you're on Bandcamp, and just for people who are not familiar, Bandcamp is a platform that allows artists to directly connect with their their fan, and
Yeah.
so their fan can
Mm-hmm.
purchase the product directly off of Bandcamp.
Right.
Um,
It goes directly to the artist, most of the
goes
money.
directly to the artist, most of the money, and then and I also found your music on YouTube,
It's on
which
Spotify. It's on Apple. Yeah.
are free. I mean,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
they pay well, YouTube is actually free because you could,
Yeah.
not be
Great.
subscribed to YouTube,
Yep.
and, the other platforms you would have to be subscribed to.
Mm-hmm.
So, talk to me about all of that. And it's interesting because I'm gonna out myself, right? I'm a Gen Xer, and so this is a relevant conversation to
Mm-hmm.
me. It might be an irrelevant conversation to someone in
Right.
their 20s.
Right.
So,
Millennial. Yeah. You, and again, just like I said, it depends on you and the person. So me, okay, right. Being from generation of coming art. Like I want to make my art. I want to make my money as an artist. Here, having back in the day physical CDs. Some people still actually sell physical CDs. I'm surprised that people. I guess they say, hey, we got to cater to everybody. We're not leaving any money on the table. I don't personally have any physical CDs. Like, I had it of my first album, but the second one that came out, I don't even have physical CDs. I don't even have anything to play. Well, actually, yeah, we just bought a record player with a CD player because I asked my husband. I was like, we were in the record store going to some crates, and I saw old Sade CD. I was like, oh my god, I used to play the actually tape back in the day all the time that had the CD. And I was like, well, we don't even have a CD player. He was like, oh yeah, it's one included into the record player. So anyway, so now it lets me think like maybe I'll get some CDs printed up. I don't know. But I went through that too also with saying like, man, I don't want to put my stuff on YouTube or Spotify because I want people to pay for it. Then I said, you know what? Because I didn't have my first album on that first. And then over the years of just being an artist, doing everything, like you said, yourself, like I said, this just depends on the artist. Experimenting, I found that for me, now if you have 100,000, 200,000, a million followers, yes, that probably will be very profitable to only have your stuff maybe on Bandcamp or like you said, the sale. Because if people are going to buy whatever you do and you're quote unquote, they love you in that way, then I would say, hey, go for it, get that money directly. I've actually talked to somebody in the industry. I'm not going to say his name either. He's a multiple Grammy winner poet, and he said songwriter, but he said he has his stuff on his site and like you said, Bandcamp, where he can get the money. He has a huge following, right? And directly to the consumer. So he said, hey, I'm willing to be patient to get my money. But I see what you're doing also with the vinyls is saying, okay, she's a seasoned artist. She's a seasoned artist. She's dynamic. We want those 1,000 fans because if it's just everywhere, hearsay, you might have people that listen to it, once in a while, or she might not get a lot of hits, but directly if they're going to look for her work, they're going to find it there and they're going to buy it. It'll be that collector's item where it may be more of a salary. So whatever she puts out, it's almost like you have to not you can look and learn from other people, but all the time you cannot compare apples, with oranges all the time with an artist. If you say, well, I just want to be an artist, well, I don't have to work another job and I can have a salary. So your salary might be like, I want to make $120,000 a year or 200,000 or whatever. What is it going to take to get those 1,000 fans to keep music coming out, to have them come to my, online shows or pay for my Patreon or to come out with some special, merchandise? Then that may be the way to go. But the thing about it, even what your friend is saying, you can always go back and put your stuff on the streaming platforms. So with me, I looked at it as like rebranding myself again, having my albums being so spread apart, even though I had, books and other things, I was always doing something in between, that I said, I want to be everywhere because it's about just, I do want people to be able to go and get my music and use it if they want to on, TikTok or Instagram or whatever, because I found that with me, and like I said, everybody's different. Personally, how I make a lot of my money, it wasn't necessarily with selling a bunch of CDs. It was with my live shows. That's where I make most of my money, with live events, doing workshops, facilitating, even as a healer, a poetic healer. I call myself the lyrical healing, doing poetic healings at retreats, women events. That's where people bought my stuff. That's where they bought this book, my first book, CD, in bulk, t-shirt. Oh, where do you have it? That's when they'll say, oh my God, they'll send people to my website. And that's how I continue to get shows, by doing shows. I continue to go. Even if I don't care if it's 30 people there, it's always something great and more money that comes out of that. So you have to know where your fan base is. You have to know where your money really comes from and experiment. So even though your friends say, I will put it on there, and you all want to go with this, try it out. If it don't work, you can always put your stuff on there. It's no, that's the thing about having a label is no set time. It's like, oh well, you can't go on here now. No, you can always add it on there. So
Yeah, thanks for that. And then so let's talk about, oh, I want to shout out Ben Frank. Peace, Ben Frank. Uh let's talk about your newest, like what are you doing now? So talk to us about all what you got going on 2023 and 2024.
yay! So as you see, look, I'm doing all these plugs for my new book. I'm so excited about this one. It's called From Mississippi Clay to African Skies in Search of Sacred Presence. So it's a continuation of my first book, Black Baptist Muslim Mystic from the Cosmos. It's just a journey through life where a human can relate to it, and it's in different sections. It talks about that inner journey, um, also always grappling with different identities of being nothing and everything at the same time, with being a Black woman, with being, this and that, just that same layering of always existing in this body, with this as spiritual beings, but the reality of like, okay, what goes on in the world. So it's more of that. And I just look at it as just part of my continued journey. So with that, I'm on tour with that. So if you want to book me for that to do a poetry reading, it could be an intimate setting. I've been doing more of an intimate setting for my first couple of readings. I had one Chicago. It was my first. And I had, again, my friend Kahari Lemuel play the cello. He sang. I had different artists, some of my best friends open up. And it was more of an intimate setting where I had all my sound healing bowls. And I open up with that to incorporate who I am right now at this stage. And again, in Detroit, the same thing with the healing bowls and share my work. But also, I have someone who just contacted me. They want to do all women poetic healing, kind of a movement session. So we're going to incorporate that into it as well. And also, I'm completing a PhD, and my PhD incorporates my healing work as well. I'm studying Black women and spirituality and healing. So, and the healing aspects of it and how they navigate all of the social, construction, the identities here in America. So it all incorporates. So sometimes I'm booked at lectures, sometimes I'm doing some academic conferences, and I'm open to personalize the experience with my work and with my poetry, whether it's a panel, intimate workshop. It can be for men and women or just women only. I've done team workshops lately where I utilize, the poetic aspects of it, yoga, sound meditation, energy healing. And yeah, that's where I am. And I'm looking to do more of it. And again, the art is sacred. Will by the end of the year, we should be up and running with different people on the blog as writers and different journalists who are going to be contributing from around the world with Art as Sacred initiative. So you can check that out as art on artassacred.com for now. And check me out on my website at tasleemjamila.com. You can book me for sessions. Right now, I may open up in the fall. Sometimes I haven't taken any clients in like the last year, personalized clients, like healing clients. I may open it up for a few in the fall. But I'm always open right now. My focus is on promoting my latest work, and I'm working on some new music as we speak.
That's all great stuff. That's all great stuff. I'm really proud of you. I remember when we first met with the gallery,
Yeah.
and it's hard to believe that that's pretty much like 15 years ago.
Oh my, I know. Isn't that crazy? It's like,
Yeah. And
and
so
I'm
I'm
proud
just
of
really
you.
honored.
You are just amazing. You're everywhere. And thank you for having me on the show. You're dynamic. I love all your guests that you have on. I'm so inspired by them and inspired by you starting your label. And I love that you just keep it moving. You keep expanding. Exactly the questions that you asked me. you're a great manifestation of that in real time, where you just ebb and flow like water. I say be like water. You keep it moving. Where can I use my skills now? And you continue to expand and grow, and that's magnificent. And that's really what life is about.
Well, I receive. I receive. I put all of your links in the description. So I put your website, I put your Bandcamp, your Instagram,
Hmm.
um, in the description of this video.
Hmm.
And you've kind of laid out, what all you have coming
Hmm.
up and going on. I really appreciate you coming by, spending some time talking about, um, your first project and, just like your journey of being a mother, of being an artist, of being a producer, a writer. Um, and, you're very well respected in the industry. It's interesting. There are a lot of women who are, artists and also, I would say, uh, movers and shakers like yourself that make things happen. And so I'm very honored that you made some time to come on this show. We've been trying to get you on the show forever. It's been kind of like my fault because I know I've been kind of busy, but
Oh,
um, been, really wanting you to be on the show for a while. So this feels really good
yeah.
that you have that you had the time and that you were able to do it. So I want people to go to your Bandcamp, Tasleem Jamila, um, download the products that are there, listen to I'm gonna call it music, but it's poetry with
Hmm.
sounds. Check you out in your, on your healing courses and healing workshops and healing retreats and things like that. Go to the tasleemjamila.com to check you out. Are there any last words that you want to leave the listeners with before we go?
Wow. Yes. With God as the center of your life, believe in this beautiful vessel that you've been gifted with, and every day grow, expand, explore, examine the beauty that is within you, and don't be afraid to share, and don't compare yourself to others. You're a unique being that is put here in this space, in this time, to give us something so unique that will shatter and expand the heavens. So don't be afraid to blossom where you are, as you are, again and again and again.
What a beautiful voice you have. And then just before we go, can you do poets or do you freestyle?
You know what? I have freestyled because I've been around so many musicians and so many hip hop artists. I freestyle some poetry with musicians. So you just want me to freestyle something? Okay,
Or if you have something, a
okay.
piece
Maybe I'll
that
read
you
some
want to
from
leave
my
us
book.
with.
I can't freestyle, but I'll read some from my book. Okay, this is called Burst Open Mission. They say she's so passionate, so perfectly present with divine purpose, powerfully packed and potent, persistent on a mission that's masterfully mastered, a masterpiece, a mixture of spiritual power, lyrical showers, and lyrical assassin. Now, was that passion? I be trashing the tragic torment that tattered torn souls from psychological war torn holes. I'm the daughter of Mansa Musa, mind like Franz Fanon, phenomenal like Zorna Hurston and them. I study ancient texts like Al Ghazali, antique artifacts, skilled in the lyrical artifacts. No PhD yet, but I'm so scholarly. That's why sisters and brothers holler at me because they hear me. The angels dread near me and steer me with knowledge that's so polished that they acknowledge me like I'm college. Except I demolish all the lies. I'm so gifted with the scrolls and scripts that's lifted from the ether realms where I take trips so I don't trip on the stagnant stains of planet chips from slave ships. I'm here to free you. So you'll see you. Like a lion, I'm going to triumph. Any mountain, I'm climbing it. Herbal remedies for the sinuses. The challenges, not defining this. No debate to my grade. I got alliances like angels, Alia, and scientists. No stopping or silences, eternal irises. Only the all seeing determine the finalists on the final list. My there could be more than affirmations affirming highness. Don't need outside confirmations to determine my lion is queen of the cosmic reality without the viruses. I'm elevating nations with truth. My vibrations with the ancestors and the youth, they proof leaders created in wombs and upper rooms that bloom and consume ripe fruits with attributes of the divine that you can't dispute. I don't ignore the sores that spoiled us Moors. My people hurting, and I've been deep searching, and for certain I was sent to pull curtains, birth a new self worth to you. It may get tough, but you more than enough. Even at war when it's rough, never give up. Never give up on you.
Thank you for that. And I want to also acknowledge, well, that was a great blessing. Let me just let that sit in gratitude for a second. So thank you for that. And I want to acknowledge Sister Soleil that came into the chat to say peace and love.
Peace.
Yeah.
Soleil.
So also a amazing hip hop artist,
Yes.
healer, and
Magnificent. Peace. Soleil out.
magnificent. Yeah, love that new promotion that she put up. It was something that was like around um I don't know if it was to go to the retreat,
Mhm.
but I just love that promotion because she basically bigged herself up and talked about how she's been, on the same thing like you, like doing this healing journey for a while,
Yes.
and how, you know, what it means to her. So y'all kind of
Yeah.
remind me of each other
Yeah. Always
spiritually.
expanding. That's like you said, she's always growing and expanding and reimagining, recreating, reclaiming, growing, ebbing and flowing. So, yeah, peace. Shout out to Soleil.
Yeah. And so I'm gonna end here and want to just give you lots of gratitude and just really appreciate all that you've shared with us, and thanks for giving that piece, because sometimes when I ask artists to do something, they'll say, oh no, I wasn't prepared for that. So I appreciate that you lended some trust to the space and to me, and just opened up with your
Yeah,
heart and shared. So thank you for that too. And I want to ask everyone to please go to your Bandcamp, Tasleem Jamila, to your, check you out on YouTube, check you out on all the streaming platforms, and purchase your music, invest in you. And, you know, let people let you know how great you are. And I just want to thank you.
humble.
So
Thank you. Another great sister, Piper Carter. You are a legend. Very humble. If you read her bio, it's pages and pages, but most of all, your spirit just emanates and it consumes you with love, beautiful vibrations. Every time I see your picture, I can even see it through the screen. And even when I first met you, you are the same beautiful spirit, and that's why I love everything that you do and what you're about. So may God continue to expand you and allow you to manifest everything that your heart is put here to do.
I receive, I receive, I receive. And thank you to all the listeners and everyone that joined in the chat, and everyone that's watching this after the live, that's watching the recording. It goes into our newsletter if you have not subscribed to the newsletter. The newsletter goes out the day after the podcast. We are live here on YouTube, Piper Carter Podcast, on the Detroit is Different Podcast Network, and that is every Tuesday at 8 p.m. And then Wednesday morning, this goes out. There's about 2,000 people that are signed up onto the newsletter, and hoping to grow and expand that. If you want to join the newsletter, just hit me up, pipercarter@gmail.com, and I will, sign you up onto the newsletter. Oh wait, Soleil says something in the chat. What does she say?
Oh, what she said.
She said Tasleem is family.
Oh, she is. Her and Griff, that's my
She said she's my
family.
love
Oh, she's
a-
amazing.
and a
Yeah,
powerhouse. So much
yeah,
gratitude,
yeah.
much gratitude.
I'm
Yeah.
grateful. I'm so grateful. Everything in divine alignment. So
Mhm.
yeah,
Mhm.
it is.
So, and everybody check out Soleil too, because he's
Yes,
doing great things as well, and
she is.
great retreat healer. If you love women in hip hop as I
Yes,
do, then you will be pleasantly surprised and
yes, you
blessed.
will.
So,
You'll get that healing too from Soleil.
yes,
Just give it.
yes.
Yeah.
And so, thank you, everyone. This has been Piper Carter Podcast on the Detroit is Different Podcast Network. If you go into the description, you'll also see all my other links. But, we're on all the streaming platforms. We're also on YouTube live at 8 on Tuesdays. We're also, I'm always talking junk on social media. I am actually still on Twitter because I've got like 8,000 people
Oh,
tapped
cool.
in on Twitter. So I do still go on Twitter, but I'm also on Mastodon. I'm also on Instagram. I'm on TikTok, but I haven't been on there like I should be. But I'm on there for the women in hip hop. We found hip hop. But I got to get the podcast on there. I'm a Gen Xer, so just give me a minute to
Uh, that's where my
get on my
12-year-old comes into
platform.
handy. She was like, "Mom, you need to be on TikTok." So yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I got to get some younger people to help me with all
yeah,
that.
yeah.
But and also the Detroit is Different podcast network. Listen to, everything on all the streamings. And also the website, pipercarterpodcast.com. And that's where you can check out everything. And Detroit is different.net, and also detroitisdifferent.com. One is the blog and one is the podcast network. So listen, all of y'all love and light for the week. I think we're in Aquarius full moon. So I want to send all that beautiful energy to y'all.
Mhm.
And we will see you next week. Peace.
Peace.